Hello. So I wanted to make a quick video about a new project and the way I'm approaching it. I think I'm going to call this video "The Past and Future of Programming." Um, and why it's the past um, is the nature of the project is to follow this Kubernetes the hard way tutorial by Kelsey Hightower, one of my heroes, and a DevOps operations legend, right? And so why this is related to the past is this is about um, manually setting up a Kubernetes cluster on like your raw VMs, your like bare metal. I'm doing it in Google Cloud and using Compute Engine instances, and then using the learning from that to apply to my home lab where I'm gonna have a mini PC, a small home lab where I'm gonna try to um, deploy Kubernetes and run some workloads on top of it related to machine learning. Probably run my own LLM inference, uh, CPU-based inference because I don't have a GPU because I'm not fancy. But anyway, so what I'm doing, the way I'm approaching this project is different from anything I've done before. I'm using an agentic coding workflow, and I've read a lot about it. I've seen people talk about it. Stevie Eggy's, shouting from the rooftops about how great and terrifying this is, and how people who don't adopt these workflows will just get left behind and be replaced or laid off. So, that's kind of scary. I don't want to get left behind. So, um, yeah. So this project, I've uh, created just some boilerplate Terraform code that sets up some compute engine instances in a specific sub network and subnetwork with firewall set rules to allow SSH from my local machine into those instances. And I'm following the tutorial. I have a controller VM, a jumpbox VM, and two worker VMs, which are going to comprise the compute on which my Kubernetes cluster will run. Um, yeah, so so that's kind of like the past of programming, right? We used to um, manually install things on bare metal servers. Maybe we have some virtualization, and we can slice those servers up into VMs, install things on those VMs, host our applications on the VMs, and then a DevOps or ops person would deploy and update and maintain those applications that are created by the application developers. What's changed a lot since then with the cloud is you don't really need to care or know about servers. And so I've kind of got into the industry just a few years ago, and a lot of what I've done in the cloud is mostly um, managed services. You've got Cloud Run, you've got GKE, which is a managed Kubernetes service. You've got functions as a service like AWS Lambda. You've got a lot of managed um, data pipeline stuff like data flow um, and other, I don't remember the names for the managed Spark services, but there's a popular open source programming model or framework. There's some managed version of it in a cloud provider. And so you don't have to worry about provisioning these uh, um, systems onto a VM from scratch. But that used to be the way things are done. And so the reason I'm doing this tutorial is to get a feel for the nuts and bolts of what's happening to set up a Kubernetes cluster on the hood, all the yucky stuff, right? But at the same time, uh, to keep things from getting too yucky, I'm using an agent. So I'm using Claude Code. I've given it access to this repo. I've given it the URL for the Kelsey Hightower tutorial repo. And I'm just kind of having a back and forth with it about how to accomplish my goals. And so the way you can do that is you install Claude Code. I have a membership to Anthropic, uh, and you can initialize it in your repo, and it'll set up a Claude.md that you can update as you go. And this is just kind of like a project plan, basically. So you're sort of like a project manager of your own coding assistant agent. Um, and then you would update this plan as you get new ideas. So one of the updates after initializing is I just made sure to add this the URL to the markdown file with the hopes that the agent, I can refer to the tutorial, and it can go and fetch the necessary documentation, and then we can have a collaboration on how to update my code to achieve what Kelsey's described, but in my own way. So one of the first changes it's helped me make. I don't know if this is going to work yet, so that's the fun part. But in this tutorial, Kelsey's setting up um, root SSH access and host names for the VMs. And so I know I'd already set up a SSH access for myself for my local machine with something um, called a metadata parameter in Terraform. Hopefully you can see that. Um, so that will put my public key um, in the VM. And if I have the firewall access set up to allow SSH, and then I have um, my instance tagged with that network tag, then that firewall rule will be applied to that tag, and I can SSH into the jump box, which I've already tested yesterday. But then I wanted to see, okay, can I set up an SSH key with root access, and can I do this kind of yucky manual setting up of host names with this kind of startup script, bash script in my Terraform config directly. And so that's where Claude Code can be very useful, because I don't know how to do all this bash stuff off the top of my head, and it would take me a while um, to do. And obviously I have Kelsey's tutorial, and so it wouldn't take too long to find how to do this stuff. But instead of just manually going in and into each VM and setting this up, I want to see if I can do a combination of the hard way with a little bit of shortcuts. And so, yeah, and so that's kind of the just initial video of this project. This is actually this project is a kind of a practice exercise for another project that I want to do, which will be eventually running my own open source LLM on a Kubernetes cluster, bare metal, and setting up some CPU based inference, because GPUs are exorbitantly expensive. We're focusing on CPU based inference with one of the open source model serving frameworks for CPU based inference, and managing all the infrastructure um, and APIs to access the model endpoint myself. And then eventually the ultimate goal is to set up some sort of test harness, some sort of eval pipeline with some some test examples, so where I can set up my service and then just plug in different open source LLMs of different sizes and pre-training, and use my test harness to evaluate each LLM. These will all be pretty small models, in the few billion to 7 billion parameter size. And then I could get really useful and interesting experience with something that's it's kind of a big topic, and a very difficult unsolved problem, which is evaluating LLMs on open-ended tasks. Right, because you can deploy an LLM and have it do something, interact with your customers, but being able to continuously monitor that, or understand when its performance is degrading and it's saying all kinds of crazy stuff, is very important. And so this is just like a very small, my project, you could say, is like a quantized project of reducing the size of everything to make it fit on my home lab cluster, or on a very small and cheap Google Cloud Compute Engine cluster. and experimenting with this quantized project in a way that gives me good experience with the fundamentals that will happen at any scale. So, and then I'm exploring the future of programming as well by using an agent and giving it instructions and programming alongside with it to achieve the goals of the project. Um, yep. So I just run. So I've got my terminal set up in two windows. This is me. This is my assistant. Steve Yegi says he calls them babies because he's babysitting AIs. So he tells his babies what to do. I think I'm just going to say assistant because it seems a little more respectful of the LLM, you know. But yeah, so I've updated my Terraform. I'm going to try to do a Terraform apply. Um, just go ahead and prove the changes since I've already reviewed the plan. See if something breaks. Like how correct is this agent? So once this applies, it's going to update the VMs, and then I can try to SSH to them into them and see if this script that it's written for me is actually doing what it needed to do, and then you know work the feedback loop with my hopeful assistant. So this is actually really fun and exciting. Programming is exciting anyway for me, but this is a whole nother level. So I'll be making more videos about it. And if you're interested in about it, there's tons of cool articles on it I can share with you, or you can just shoot me a question. Bye.